Hello and welcome everybody. We are back here for a fresh new league, and in fact, we're doing something a little bit new other than just starting a new league. We also are playing this accursed card, Hanweir Battlements. That's a lot of things on the screen right here, but you can ignore the two cards on the edge here, the Hanweir, the Reeling Township, and the Garrison. We're not playing those cards. It is technically a flip card and a meld card and all that stuff, but honestly, all this card is a land that taps for colorless, and you can tap a red and tap it to give haste to a creature. So, the idea behind Hanweir Battlements is that you can fetch it up with a Valakut and immediately haste your Titan, assuming you have an Amulet in play. And it doesn't require you to have white and red mana like Slayer's Stronghold over here does. Slayer's Stronghold is going to require you to play a copy of Boros Garrison. It's going to be an awkward colorless source itself, and then usually along with Slayer's Stronghold, you also play a Sunhome, which again requires access to both red and white mana. Both of these are awkward colorless lands that can kind of ruin your draw depending on how it is. So we've opted to go without those particular lands, and instead we're playing a full 4 Rule Turfs. We're playing an extra Valakut, a Ketria Triome, and a fetch land to go along with this kind of red theme to try to make our mana base as consistent as possible. That's one of the advantages to playing Hanweir Battlements. And there's a few concessions in the mana base to make room for that, specifically for the red splash, which will come into play on the sideboard, but for now, let's just continue talking about the main board here. In order to make room for some of these cards, some of the other cards you have to cut is one of the Garen Briggs, which is a pretty standard cut whenever you're splashing another color on the sideboard, so that's going to be a card that we see disappearing here. And then lastly, the Crumbling Vestige I've been playing very frequently. It goes very well with Dryad turns where you want to leave an extra land in play, but you don't want to get the Boros Garrison because you need red and white mana. Well, Crumbling Vestige will stay in play and allow you to do that. However, obviously, if you're not playing the Boros Garrison, then, or not the Boros Garrison, if you're not playing the Slayer's Stronghold, then there's no need for Crumbling Vestige because every time you haste your Titan, you're going to leave your lands in play. It's almost always going to be Valakut plus Hanweir Battlements. Pretty much. So that's kind of the thinking behind those particular changes. And the rest of the main board is pretty much the same. I could have chosen to run one Sakura Tribe Scout. In fact, almost all the lists that are performing well online are playing 4 Scouts and 0 Grazers, but I think that's just complete craziness. I much prefer Grazer. I think Scout just dies to every removal spell your opponent could have. Scout is going to be slightly better against matchups like Tron, where swinging 1 at a Karn, either the Great Creator or Liberated, that can be quite impactful. It's also a little bit better against the control decks, particularly the ones that are reliant on Path to Exile, because it's just a 1/1 creature that is going to put it in a land drop all the time. It messes up their Field of Ruins if you hold it up with a bounce land, so they can't Field of Ruins, say, your Valakut or your Field of the Dead or whatever, as long as you have an untapped Tribe Scout. Maybe I should pull this card up. Okay, so I found the card. It's this one right here. Just a 1 mana 1/1 that taps to put a land into play. Again, you can do this at instant speed, so it helps your matchup against like blue-white control, against Ponza if they're trying to pillage your lands, that kind of thing. It's better against decks that have little to no removal. I suspect it would be quite good against humans, that kind of thing. However, Tribe Scout dies to Lava Dart, it dies to Fatal Push, it dies to Lightning Bolt, all of these things, and the worst thing about those exchanges is that you never actually get a land drop out of it, right? Ideally, when you play Tribe Scout, you'd be able to get a line where you have a Garen Brig in play on turn 3, you can cast a Titan, because that's one of the things is Garen Brig plus Tribe Scout, and, obviously having the requisite colors and amounts of lands is able to cast a turn 3 Primeval Titan. However, in practice, I don't really find it to be practical in that way, because the Tribe Scout just dies. There's lots of Lava Darts. There's Mono Red Prowess, there's Is It Blitz, there's those kinds of decks. There are decks like Jund, or other Lightning Bolt decks, like even Blue-Red control decks, where your Tribe Scout can be a liability, and thus I'm opting not to play that. For the enter the battlefield ability of Arboreal Grazer. That said, I am stealing something from the online performing lists, and that is the Hanweir battlements. That's where the idea for this list came about. Much of it is influenced by that particular deck. But anyways, coming to the sideboard, one of the benefits you get of playing a Hanweir battlements list is you can go heavier on the red splash since you have fewer off-color lands, and that allows you to play cards like Abrade and Firespout on the sideboard. Abrade obviously going to be great against Stoneforge Mystic decks, against Chalice of the Void decks, decks that play Ensnaring Bridge, anything that have creatures or artifacts that you want to target, or both. Abrade will be good. It gives you some additional game against Devoted Druid decks, that kind of thing. I could even see bringing it in potentially against Ad Nauseam to kill Pentad Prisms, although that seems a little narrow. We'll see, but yeah, Abrade just is a very versatile card that I'm a fan of. And then we also get Firespout, which if you play it using a red and a green, will do 3 damage to each creature. Otherwise, you can spend one color or the other to do just flying creatures or just ground creatures. But ultimately, this is just going to be a board sweep, which is going to be useful against any deck playing like Arbor Elf, Magus of the Moon. You can almost always Firespout, and in fact, you can always Firespout away an opponent's Magus of the Moon. It's going to be good against humans. There's a lot of things that Firespout comes in against, and so it's definitely a nice card to have access to here as well. Everything else is pretty standard. I will say, in order to make room for some of the red cards, there was a single Dismember that had to be cut. I'm a big fan of Dismember in the sideboard. I like having access to 3, but when we're playing as much removal as Dismembers, Abrades, and Firespouts, and the second explosives with the first one in the main, that's a lot of removal. You don't really want to be overboard on that effect. So that is the card that's going to get the cut here. Otherwise, I had been playing 3 Veil of Summers. That was the last league that we played through, and I just trimmed those 3 straight off to make room for the extra Abrade and 2 Firespouts. So those are the changes. That's all the talking. Let's get into match 1 here, and I will see you guys for the games. I will also mention as a side note here that I personally have never actually played with the card Hanweir Battlements. I own a copy of it in paper. I even had it in my deck at one point in time, but I never got to play it before COVID-19 shut down the entire world. And since then, I've just been playing the Slayer Stronghold build, so this is going to be somewhat of a new experience to me. I know that the Double Strike on Sunhome, has been relevant for me in the past, like attacking through Icefang Coatls and being able to threaten to just eat up my opponent's blockers with a Titan, but we'll see if we end up missing that effect. Playing here against Fake Club. And of course we get the classic 6-land hand. On the draw, we have a turn to explore and a Radiant Fountain to gain a little bit of value here. We have a Triome to cycle if we find ourselves stuck on too many lands. It's not fantastic, but I don't hate it. Our opponent says, "Hi, good luck, have fun, red." Send him back, "Hi, you too." This hand, it's a bit of a risk, but I think it has a lot of things going for it. One thing is that we already have a Valakut, so if we draw a Dryad, then we can start comboing that off with our lands here to deal with some of our opponent's threats, if that is something that potentially comes down to being important. We have tons of untapped sources. We have a Garenbrig for a faster Titan. We have an additional card hidden behind this Ketria Triome. So I think we just need a few good draws here and we'll be well set up. That one was not a fantastically good draw, not gonna lie. Let's go ahead and get this Valakut out there and pass it back. I'm thinking this is some kind of Death Shadow deck. With the Verdant Catacombs, it's very possible this is like Jund Shadow. I guess it could also be a Jund deck playing mainboard Luris. That would be interesting. Just all fetch lands all day over there. I did not pay attention to see who they used the Bauble on. That's a triggered ability. Oh, they bobbled us. Interesting. Okay, so no surprises here. 100% casting this Explorer. We'll even take the 2 damage to do it. It is worth it, in my opinion. Alright, Pact Negation not looking its best here. I think we go ahead and get this Radiant Fountain out there, recoup some of this life loss. We can pick it up with our Simic Growth Chamber. We got plenty of untapped sources here. We can just go Gemstone Mine into Castle Garenbrig if we're really that worried about land destruction and being able to have a Garenbrig online for 2 turns from now. I'm not really worried about it. Inquisition. Well, you can take my Lone Pact Negation here. Oops, all lands. Which, I say that as a joke, but in truth, it's not particularly good for us. Also, our opponent really hasn't done anything yet. I guess they now have an online Shadow, thanks to this additional shock that they were able to get here with the Blood Crypt. Well, I guess it really was the fetch land, but whatever. You know what I mean. Shadow incoming, most likely. They could Sealify themselves here. That's an interesting thing to note. Ooh, Double Shadow. Let's get this Engineered Explosives off the top. Grazer. That's not terrible. So, we can use the Breeding Pool to cast Grazer, put in Growth Chamber, float one with the Radiant Fountain, and then pick it up and put it back into play for turn and still be able to cycle Triome. And I think that's going to be the best option here. We could also just straight up put Garenbrig into play Windswept Heath and fetch for a basic land for turn, and have Triome to cycle during their turn, and Gemstone Mine to play a Titan if we find it. That would also play better around discard spells. I'm going to go with that. I'm trying to think if the order matters. We could put Gemstone Mine into play tapped here, and that guarantees that we won't have to use the counter. Let's do that. I don't think it really matters. We'll play Garenbrig, and we'll pass it back. This way, we can cycle the Triome on their end step, so we don't expose a Summoner's Pact or Titan to an Inquisition or Thoughtseize. We might be in some trouble here, though, depending on what our opponent has. If they just go like Shock, Cycle Street Wraith, Temur Battle Rage, one of these guys, I don't even know how much damage that would be, but sounds like lethal to me. Speaking of lethal, if we are able to get a Dryad into play before we get a Titan into play, then they'll basically just be dead on the spot. Killing the Grazer, okay. We're taking 8 here, and we did play around this Inquisition. So that was definitely a heads-up play. Alright, let's go ahead and spin the old wheel here. Not quite as exciting as a Bloodbraid Elf, but let's see what we can top deck. Rule Turf. Not really what the doctor ordered. Dryad is not terrible here. And we can go Dryad into like Gruul Turf plus Windswept Heath. And that way we get 3 Valakut triggers. That's actually lethal. I think they're just dead here. Let me make sure. So if we play Dryad, play Gruul Turf, and pick itself up, then play Windswept Teeth and fetch it, I think they're just dead. Alright, well, like I said, the props of having the naturally drawn Valakut definitely coming through here. And then we're also seeing, we are already being rewarded for having a fetch land in our deck as well. So let's make this a little easier on ourselves. We'll save targets. Always yes. Always yield. And we'll pick up the Radiant Fountain for extra value here. This was definitely a lucky draw. Ping ya. Bolt ya. This is ridiculous. I'm just gonna be honest. This is fantastic. Love it. Alright, let's go to game 2 here. Well, that was so wholesome. Let's bring in these Baloths, I do suppose. Dismembers, perhaps. Maybe not. We'll see. I don't think Fire Spout's gonna cut it here. I don't hate Beast Within, but I don't love it either. I think Beast Within is not gonna be the move, though. Giving them an extra token is probably pretty bad for us. A braid doesn't seem particularly useful. Fire spout, neither. It's either dismembers or nothing. I think I'm going to bring in the dismembers here just to see if we have the stuff to cut. We can trim a stirrings. We can trim... Actually, I don't want to trim any Summoner's Pact. We can trim Pact of Negation. Do we want to trim an additional land here? I could see that. I don't really know what land to cut, though. Usually I would be cutting a redundant Selesnya Sanctuary, but we don't have access to that one. They say, what a good top deck. I was sure I would win the first round. Yeah, it was pretty insane. Although, to be fair, we did play around the Inquisition. We cycled the Triome on their end step, so if we had top deck Dryad then it would have been straight up reward from having cycled the Triome when we did. It was one card deeper anyways, though. We did have 2 looks instead of 1 look thanks to our play, so... Let's see. I guess we can cycle this cycle. We can get rid of this Cavernous Souls. We did see black-green lands instead of, like, Watery Grave, so I'm not really worried about counter magic here. I like Grazer in the matchup. Azusa is probably fine. Maybe we can trim 1 Grazer because they're bad top decks. And possibly 1 Summoner's Pact, although I don't love it. Let's trim an Azusa. Nah, Azusa's, I think, could be good as well. Let's just go with 1 Dismember. Weird number, but I don't want to side out any Summoner's Pact. As we could tell from Game 1, this game always comes down to top decks and pretty much nothing else. And we immediately see the double Azusa hand that I was hoping to avoid by thinking about siding 1 out, but that's alright. Actually, this might be a good thing, not a bad thing. I'm going to try this hand. It's going to be slow against a very fast Shadow Draw, but they might spin their wheels a little bit and not have access to a threat here. Let's go ahead and get this Windswept Heath out there. I don't know if we want to fetch for the Triome here. I think if we draw a Triome, there's a possibility that we want to cycle it instead of play it, but... Maybe not, though. Maybe fetching for the Triome is fine here, because we have a lot of things to do with our mana once we hit 3, and cycling a Triome... If we were to draw the Triome, we'd probably want to put it into play with one of these creatures, is what I'm trying to say. So, might as well give ourselves the option to draw a Breeding Pool instead of the Triome, so that we have an untapped source if we need it. Let's go ahead and do this. This also lets us play a little bit easier around a Tolaria West, now that we have an additional blue source already in play, so that's good. Opponent's being very patient with their fetch lands here. Not saying that it's a good or bad thing, I'm just remarking that I have not seen opponents just hold up fetch lands in their shadow deck. Usually they have things to do with it. They bobbled... Who did they bobble? They bobbled themselves, but they did not fetch. So I guess they wanted the card that they saw on top. That's the only explanation that makes sense to me. Okay. If they're planning on casting some discard spells here, we have plenty of 3-drops to pour the rest of our lands into play this turn. So, they'll probably just be priced into taking a Summoner's Pact. Ashiok? Gross. Okay. Well, we can get a Dryad out there, I guess. Let's get value from our Radiant Fountain, I do suppose. I'm a little reticent to play Dryad here because I think that they will likely just have a removal spell. They probably do. I'll play the Azusa. I know it doesn't clock the Ashiok quite as well, but... Alright, and we'll pick up our Radiant Fountain for maximum value here, and pass it back. If we draw another differently named land, we'll start triggering this Field of the Dead, which is quite nice. There's a Shadow. There's a Shadow. And a Damping Sphere. Man, they're being very hateful over there. Differently named land. That's a Grazer. That's not terrible. Alright, let's go ahead and play out a Fountain. And now I think we're going to be picking up and cantripping with this Triome. value, guys. Let's get this growth chamber into play. We'll pick up the triome. And we do have a land drop for turn, so because of that fact, I'm going to go ahead and cycle it now. Because if we find something like a Valakut, for example, then we get heavily rewarded. And otherwise, we could just find a differently named land. What is going on? Oh, okay, we can't do that because this doesn't tap for 2 anymore. I was like, so confused. Do we want to put this grazer into play anyways? I think we do. We'll play out this grazer. And we are not putting this triumph into play. That one's for us to cycle. No. And we'll pass it back. We do have 2 Valakuts to potentially draw into here. And Beast Within for the Ashiok would be nice. Interesting that we can still tap all of our lands for any color that we want to under this Damping Sphere. Not really going to be helpful, since it's not like we can transmute a Tolario Est anyways, with this Ashiok locking us out of that particular line. I mean, at this point, if we drew an Ingenuity Explosives, I'd probably just play it on 1 and blow it up. And for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and throw a Chump Blocker out there. We can take 3, though. Definitely want to make ourselves open to the possibility of top-decking Explosives. Alright, so they get to draw. We get to draw. Nothing particularly good, though. So let's not tap these Growth Chambers, just in case we do draw the Beast Within. Not like it'll make a difference this turn. Yeah, let's cycle this one. Tracker. That's not bad. Yeah, let's swing all these guys at Ashiok. This at least makes them hold back 1 shadow to block the Dryad if they want to keep their Ashiok in play. Although they could just have a removal spell here and, you know, it's whatever. They draw a card. Okay. Okay, so Ashiok down to 2. Do we play out the tracker? I guess we do. Keep in mind that there should be no additional tax from the Damping Sphere, since cycling doesn't count as any kind of cast, so. We also have an Azusa here to pitch to, like a Kroxa or something. I don't think I'm willing to block a Death Shadow with this tracker. Yeah, they would have to do a lot of work in order to capitalize on that. If we draw a Beast Within, we actually can... Well, not anymore, but I was going to say, if we draw Beast Within, we actually could... No, we couldn't Titan, because these still only tap for 1. What am I saying? Well, now we just want to draw Valakut. I think if we draw Valakut, we'll be in quite decent shape. I mean, any land here gets us a redraw. It's a shame that we have 2 duplicate lands here. Speaking of duplicates, we got a second Damping Sphere over there. And a dead Summoner's Pact. Fantastic. Well, I'm not suiciding all my creatures into these shadows, so... In all honesty, this Ashiok is the main thing that we're losing to at the moment. And they drew another Thoughtseize. I mean, this Summoner's Pact's not doing anything anyways, which is ironic that they're still forced to take it, but... I mean, now if we draw Valakut into Cantrip with Tracker into another land, they're just dead, so... That definitely feels like a good place to be. I mean, let me audit that statement. It definitely feels like a not bad place to be. I can't say it's particularly good. There's a lot of top decks we have here that are just flat out bad. If they're attacking with a shadow here, they either have a second shadow or they're willing to lose this Ashiok. I'm not scared of Temur Battle Rage. It wouldn't even kill us here, so... Explorer. That's not a terrible one. Alright, let's see what this Explorer can find us. Hopefully a Valcut. Dryad. Well, we can't even cast that one this turn. Well, obviously we can't afford to attack everything into the Ashiok and then they just swing and kill us, so let's not do that. I guess we could have sent the Dryad and the Tracker at Ashiok. Maybe that would have been better. Well, there's a third shadow. Okay. We're chomping with Azusa. Maybe not the Dryad. Oh, they're swinging with both? Okay. Well, we're chomping, and I think we're just willing to accept our losses to Temur Battle Rage. I don't think there's a way for us to not die to Temur Battle Rage this turn, in all honesty. Okay. Something good. There's a Gruul Turf. Okay. Well, let's cycle this guy, this Tireless Tracker Clue, and see what we can see. We don't want to yield to that. Do we want to pick up the Gruul Turf so we can replay it? Well, I guess let's just go ahead and draw with the Clue in response, so we can find out for sure. Key West. Not really doing a whole lot for us here. We can pick up and play Radiant Fountain and then T-West, and we'll be able to play Dryad this turn, and we need one top deck to make our Field the Dead live, and we'll have a Clue this upcoming turn as well. I mean, I guess that's our best chance. And we'll have actually 2 Clues. Not transmuting that one. We'll float some colorless here. It doesn't matter what we pick. Actually, I don't think we've played a spell this turn, so this Dryad should just cost 3. There we go. So we can crack a Clue as well. That's good. I guess we'll crack the Clue now in case we draw Valakut. I might as well. Hanweir. Alright, let's play that instead and keep the Tolaria West in case we are able to somehow transmute Tolaria West this upcoming turn. There's a small chance. If they have anything that makes them lose life here, then we'll be forced into chumping all 3 shadows. We can't beat Temur Battle Rage at all. Okay. Bobble's actually a really good one for us. They bobbled us. Interesting. Do they have the removal spell or not? That is the question. Obviously, their play has traversed the Ulvenwald for Shriekmaw. Oh. Well, there's Traverse. But I don't think this can get anything relevant exactly this turn. Sadly, we won't have a Dryad in play anymore, so I don't really know. I guess we could still draw Engineered Explosives, and that would be pretty insane, in all honesty. Well, we gotta chump. I guess we didn't have to play the Dryad there. We could have played Azusa instead of the second Dryad, and that might have been a huge punt. Because if we top deck a Valakut here, then we could have killed them this turn if we had played the Dryad instead. That's a shame. Engineered Explosives. Engineered Explosives. Yep, we're dead. Alright. Yeah, we can't do anything about this. We could plan haste as Zeus and put them down to 2. For whatever that's worth. No, we can't even haste it because we don't have colored mana anymore. Okay, so we didn't end up getting punished for playing the second Dryad out there. Although I don't remember if at the time when I played it there was already Azusa in play. Regardless, do we want to change anything? Stirrings doesn't seem terrible, actually. Helping us find relevant lands and explosives. That might be better than Dismember, in all honesty. I think that's about it. We know that they're playing Damping Sphere. I don't know how much we care about Damping Sphere, though. Do we bring in Rex Sage for Damping Sphere? Maybe. A little questionable. I think I will over a Grazer, because Grazer's not that particularly great here. We could also have sided out. Excuse me. We could also have sided out one Summoner's Pact. We definitely want to be on the play here. And this hand's great. Plays around Damping Sphere. Plays around discard decently well as well. So, unless they go turn 1 Inquisition, take our Explorer, we have Explore turn 2. We'll play out the Garen Briggs since it is, in fact, a tapped land. Our opponent said, have fun, good luck for the final epic round. We got a Overgrown Tomb, shocked, of course. Doesn't necessarily mean they have something. But they do, and this almost certainly has to take the Summoner's Pact, right? It depends on if they have Ashiok already or not. If they don't take Summoner's Pact, I'm probably going to put them on the Ashiok. They take the Explorer, so... we might be facing down an Ashiok here, guys. I don't know if you heard me when I said that. We'll play out our tap land. And let's not pay 2 life. My understanding is that even if you pay the 2, it still will enter tapped, so... we can play Dryad into Titan 2 turns from now. Next turn would be Dryad plus Battlements. It was probably Forest, Dryad, then Battlements, and then the turn after, if we top deck a land, we could play Titan. Even if they kill our Dryad at that point, although it would need to be specifically an untapped land. With Dryad, it could also be a bounce land picking up one of our untapped sources, so we'll see what happens here. Goyf I'm not particularly afraid of. I mean, it is a clock. That's definitely true, but... I mean, we've got stuff going on. And if our opponent doesn't have the Ashiok, then they're going to be very punished for not taking this pact. In fact, even if they do, I'm going to Summoner's Pact during their turn and then untap and pay the 4. So, let's go Forest. And now we can play the Talari West instead of the Hanweir and have guaranteed Titan mana this upcoming turn. So, things are looking good. They might not be quite as good as they seem if our opponent has an Ashiok, because then we're 2 turns away from casting Titan, but... I mean, that's better than not casting Titan, so... definitely not yielding through this turn here. Abrupt Decay this guy. Okay. Well, we're casting Titan this upcoming turn, and we're already protected against Damping Sphere because we have 2 green sources in play. No, 3, actually. I was going to say we might need to pick up an extra one, but this Overgrown Tomb represents the 3rd one, so we're already completely protected from Damping Sphere plus Pillage or something like that. And they have a Death Shadow. We already have a T-West to get Engineered Explosives here, so... and now we're seeing why they probably should have taken Summoner's Pact on the first discard spell. Maybe they were banking on drawing a second discard spell by the time we could cast this Titan, but it was definitely a risk on their part. Explore, okay. Well, I don't expect them to have any responses to this, so here's the Summoner's Pact. I guess they also have Damping Sphere to stop us from being able to activate Garen Brig, but we can get Feel the Dead here. There's a lot of things we could do, actually. I was thinking about Bajuka Bog. I'm still thinking about Feel the Dead. There's a potential to get Valakut to set up for this Dryad. I think maybe Valakut... I mean, that plays really badly into a removal spell on our Dryad, but at the same time, they have to kill the Titan and the Dryad. Like, we could get Valakut plus Feel the Dead here. That doesn't really set up a kill with Dryad, exactly. I'm not really worried about Liliana of the Veil here, I think. If we get a bounce land plus Valakut, then we can pick up the Vesuva, and then next turn we can play Dryad, play Vesuva as a copy of the bounce land, and do 1 Valakut trigger, and then pick the Vesuva back up and play it as a copy of Valakut to do 2 more triggers, and that would be 1 short of killing them. And that's assuming that they have a way to deal with the Titan. I think this is just going to be the best line. We'll definitely get Growth Chamber here, so we can transmute Tolari West if we absolutely need to. Although, I guess if we pick up the Growth Chamber, we're potentially conceding to... No, there's no way that they can play a Damping Sphere and a Pillage this upcoming turn, so we'll just do this. Set up lethal, you know? We also can explore this upcoming turn for the 4th Valakut trigger, which I had forgotten that was in our hand, but it is possible. Oh no, they're taking our Dryad. Okay, well, as long as they're not dealing with Titan, that's fine. I didn't realize that they were awaiting on me. I mean, that doesn't stop us from having access to a Dryad. We can play Vesuva as a copy of the Growth Chamber, pick up the Tolari West after floating the mana, transmute for a Summoner's Pact, cast it, and play a Dryad off of our mana here, and then just get the 2nd Valakut and a bounce land, and still have an extra land for turn from the Dryad, so I think they're just dead here. Let me double check. So we got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to play. Oh no, because we have to pay for this. So I guess if we can avoid it, we don't want to tap the Growth Chamber. Tap like this. Okay. We're still doing things here. We can even play Vesuva as a copy of Field of the Dead. We can get Bojuka Bog and Field of the Dead, and then they have to trade their Shadow with the Primeval Titan, since these Tarmogoyfs will only be, let's say we have Enchantment, Creature, Instant, Sorcery, so the Goyfs will actually still be 4. They have Sorcery, Instant, Land, Creature, so no matter what we do with the Bog, it'll still be a 4-3 Goyf a 4-5 Goyf regardless, so they can double block with Goyfs and then swing back with Shadow, which kind of sucks. Tough. We could attack and get a 2nd Tolari West and a bounce land, and pick up the tap Tolari West, transmute it, and play a land. I think getting Field of the Dead is going to be the best line here, since we already have this as another Titan rolled up, so let's just attack, get Field and something. Maybe not Bojuka Bog. We'll see. It has to be a differently named land, at least. Radiant Fountain. I don't know if that one's going to be the move. Does it have to be a differently named land? We have 6 already in play, so we'd have Field plus the Tolari West. If we got a Tolari West here, then we'd still be able to trigger the Field. Well, we wouldn't really have a way to pick up the 2nd Tolari West. Maybe Bog is going to be the best here. Weird. I'm not really sure. I guess Bog is going to play around them having another Traverse, maybe? I don't know. Let's just do this. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we can, if they don't, like, put their Tarmogoyfs in front of this Primeval Titan, then we can play Vesuva as a copy of Bog and Bog ourselves as well. And that will put the Goyfs down to a 0-1. That's definitely interesting to me. Let's see how they block here. And we can kill both Goyfs. If they chump with both Goyfs here instead of the Shadow, we can do like 3 and 3 and then play the 2nd Bog and it'll kill both Goyfs immediately. Okay. So I think that is going to be the plan here. We get 1 less zombie token, but if they want to trade Shadow here, I'm totally fine with that as well. I think there's not much they can do here. Unless they have a Street Wraith. Okay, yeah. Well, This is, I think, going to be the best play. Let's copy the Bojuka Bog. We got some tiny goifs. And maybe we should have played Explore first. Now I'm not sure if I even want to play the Explore at all. And you know what? I don't care. I'm playing Explore. This gives us more Feel the Dead tokens anyways. And a Titan. They're close to just dead on board with the tokens. If we had... So this is going to get us one more token. If we had one additional token, then we could attack with all of our zombies through their Tarmogoyfs. So we actually can play and haste this Titan because we already have the Red Source and the Valakut in play. That, I don't think, is going to be good enough. It also shrinks their Goyfs down to 1/2s. So, if they attack with these Goyfs, I'm most certainly blocking with 2 zombies. 1 on each Goyf. Because that means they can't play their shadow. Or they may not see it, but... It's definitely a complicated situation. Okay, they play the shadow. Ketria Triome. Let's see, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 6 gets a Titan, 3 transmutes a Talari West, and 3 plays a Dryad. But that would not let us haste our Titan? Well, I mean, we're playing the Titan, for sure, because otherwise they could just make us discard it, so... The question is, what are we getting with it? Oh, wait, we need an additional green here, don't we? I guess we're floating to transmute this Talari West immediately. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we can leave the actual transmuting of Talari West for this upcoming turn. Because that way we're not exposing whatever we transmute for to a discard spell. So here's Titan, and we can, in fact, attack with it this turn. No reason to try to do anything fancy with Bojuka Bog here. So here I think we get Talari West and a bounce land, perhaps? We don't really have anything else that's particularly useful, so... Yeah, let's go with that. And then what we pick up with this bounce land is unclear. We could pick up the copy of Bojuka Bog, or we could pick up a bounce land. I think maybe picking up the Bojuka Bog here is going to be alright. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff we could do here, and I don't think it matters what we do, in all honesty. By doing this, we can play it potentially as a copy of Field before we go to combat and get even more zombies. Yep. Let's just go with this line. Let's just get all the zombies. Let's zombie army over here, okay, guys? And... I'm inclined to just let this blue go. Oh, wait, hold on. Before we do that, we need to actually haste our Titan here. And I think I am more than willing to swing this Titan into the shadow. I don't think it makes a huge difference. If we attack with everything, they're going to block. I mean, they have to block with all 4, I think. They block here, and then they block the... They trump 2 of these guys, and they take 4, but gain 3. I don't know. I'll let them figure it out. Math is for blockers. We will search, though. We already have 2 Talari Wests, so I think getting a bounce land for one of those, maybe just 2 bounce lands to pick up the Talari Wests. Can we transmute both? Maybe if we get double growth chamber here, we can. Yeah, let's do that. All these triggers. All of these triggers. We also have a surprise extra 2 zombies with our Windswept Heath Arrow, although I doubt that it's much of a surprise. Alright. Let's see what you do, opponent. I think we have Teamer Battle Rage covered as well. Just gonna be honest here. Ooh, interesting play with the Goyfs. I don't mind eating up a Tarmogoyf here, though. Clearly, I said fetch, so I can't kill either Tarmogoyf. That's fine. Okay, do we have another land drop here, or are these all just... Nah, these are abilities. Okay, no more land drops. One could only hope, right? All you want to do is make land drops with Feel the Dead in play. Yep, that's fine. We're definitely playing around Battle Rage here. So if they, let's say the worst case scenario, they had Cycle Street Wraith into Battle Rage. That would be 10 times 2, 20 damage, and we're at 15, so we need to absorb at least 5. So we need to put at least 3 zombies in front of this shadow. Our opponent reminded me of Dismember here, which is funny. Because that's actually the worst case. Dismember plus Teamer Battle Rage is also possible. This would be enough to kill the shadow. I'm not doing the math. Let's just put everything in front of the Death Shadow. Playing around one removal spell here. That way we can still kill the shadow. Or like a cycle of a Street Wraith, perhaps. Shadow gone. Lethal attackers on board. Windswept Heath still uncracked. Our opponent needs engineered explosives. Ashiok. Let's fetch. Our opponent said they needed to play their Ashiok instead of the Luris. Yeah, that makes sense. Alrighty, good games, opponent. Definitely a very exciting match 1. Didn't feel like there was a significant loss from not having the Boros Garrison and Slayer Stronghold here. In fact, the mana base feels quite smooth, I must say. Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty solid match. I feel very satisfied after that. It was a nice 2-1 match as well. Nobody got overran either way or the other. Both definitely had some chances. So, I'd love to see that. Some pure, honest magic. Alright, guys, I will see you guys for round 2. This is Redface Menace, signing off.